So in our last class, we were in Acts of the Apostles, page 11.3, and we're just going to look at the next two paragraphs. But before we do that, I want to ask somebody to summarize, maybe the brother in the black top. Sorry, I've forgotten your name. What's your name? Jeff. Brother Jeff, if you could just summarize the first paragraph that we've done. So what's it about? What's it telling us? You don't have to go into every detail, but just give us an overview.
Okay, so we looked at Acts of the Apostles 11, paragraph 3.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about the church and the law and the truth.
Okay.
And so from this, we saw that this paragraph we were having repeat and enlarge and chiasms, and we could share a lot of the concepts that we found about the church with the law and the truth.
So he said we saw about the law and the truth and the church, and we used chiasm and repeat and enlarge to learn more about those three things. What would you say the summary of the subject was in that first paragraph? What would you, if you were to tell me like one sentence about what's it about?
It's about how the truth will triumph and how that God has sustained His church throughout the ages.
So he's telling us it's about how God has sustained his church through the ages and how the truth will triumph. Does anybody else want to add anything or comment any more about that paragraph? Any more thoughts or anything you wanted to share that we didn't say in the last one? Everybody okay? Okay, let's move to the paragraph after that then, the next one. Acts of the Apostles 12.1. It says, during ages of spiritual from age to age through successive generations, pure doctrines of heaven holding within its borders. Enfeebled and defective as it may appear, the church is the one object upon which God bestows in a special sense his supreme regard. It is the theatre of his grace in which he delights to reveal his power to transform hearts. So, Sister Trifina? Yeah? Oh, you're not? Okay, who's there? Brother at the back, Brother Jacob. Are you there? In the passage? Can you tell us about the first sentence here then? I'm going to rub some of this off. Let me just... are we okay to get rid of this? Yeah. Let's put that on. I might keep the kingdom. Okay, so what do you want to say about the first sentence? So the first sentence, it reads, during ages of spiritual darkness, the church of God has been as a city set on a hill. I'm just going to keep this bit up. So what is that saying, Brother Jacob? What's it saying? If this is the introduction to this paragraph, I think if we summarise the first paragraph, it talks about the church and opposing forces, but how God will protect and guard it in essence, that God's going to preserve it. So that's all about the church really as the subject. So what are we seeing in this next paragraph? Oh, you haven't got it in front of you? Okay, shall I ask someone else then? Can you get it in front of you? Can you do the next one in a minute? Brother, or someone share it with him. Okay, so it says, During ages of spiritual darkness, the church of God has been as a city set on a hill. So, what are you getting from that? He hasn't got it yet. Okay, maybe you do the second sentence. Maybe that brother next to Robert. I'm sorry, I've forgotten what's your name. What's your name again? Stephen. Yeah, that's right. Brother Stephen, do you want to do the first sentence for us?
The first sentence.
Yes, of that paragraph, 12.1. During ages of spiritual darkness, the church of God has been as a city set on a hill.
God has last week I explained this sentence. What I understand from this sentence.
Yes, so maybe you could start by telling us what you think the key words or word is.
So I think
City set on a hill. Okay, that's the thought you want to pick out.
yeah. So I think he's comparing God's church to a city that is he's comparing it to a city that is set on a hill.
Okay, so this is just my... Obviously, it would have a wall around it if it was a city in ancient times, but that's just an impression of a city set on a hill. Okay, so you've got this city set on a hill. Lots of buildings.
And then throughout this period of darkness, spiritual darkness, God's church has been this likened to this city that is on a hill. And to me that strikes me as a city that is set on a hill is not so vulnerable to attacks and all that, and it's something that can be seen from afar.
Okay, so he's saying it's like a city set on a hill through ages of darkness. So we've got this, I'm just going to symbolize that by the world covered in darkness. There's this darkness, and God's telling us that there's a city set on a hill, and Brother Stephen's telling us that it's not so easy to attack because it's on a hill, but it's also easily seen from a distance. So, and what time period is this?
The period of spiritual darkness, I think, should be the 1260.
So you're going to give it a label. You're going to say it's 1260.
I think she's talking about many ages throughout all these different ages.
Okay, so now he's saying I think she's talking about many ages through different ages because it says ages plural. So we've got ages. So there's these ages of darkness, and ages implies different time periods of darkness, and in that time the church is like a city set on a hill. Anything else you want to get from that? Finished? No, anybody else want to add anything? What characteristic of a city is, like Brother Dan, what characteristic of the city is he trying to pull out of this, do you think? Sorry, Ellen White, but God, the writer.
I think that every person or the world can see anything on the hill.
Why can anyone in the world see a city on a hill?
Why?
Yeah.
Because it is lifted up.
Because it's lifted up. Okay, so it is lifted up, but if we look at the first part of the sentence and we do compare and contrast, what's she trying to tell us about the city? Is he trying to tell us it's lifted up?
What I'm seeing is,
Because there's a contrast here, isn't there? So you've got this, during ages of spiritual darkness, in contrast, the church has been as a city set on a hill.
yeah, it's like the darkness is like the hill.
The darkness is like the hill.
Yeah, by darkness, the church can be seen in darkness.
Why can it be seen? Why can you see in the dark?
Because I think when you use another symbol, the candle, the light which is on the lampstand can be seen than that one is hidden.
Okay, a light can be seen on a lampstand. So you're saying now that if you use another symbol of a light, it can. So why didn't God do that here? So what's he saying about the city? At night time, what does the city look like? It's lit up. So I think what it's trying to tell us is that this is like a light in the darkness, because it's contrasting that first part of the sentence saying through ages of darkness the church has been like a city set on a hill. And the reason is because at night time the lights are on. I think in a dark period a city can be seen because its light shines. Where are we getting that from? Do we have that anywhere else? Yes, where is it?
Matthew chapter 5 verse 14.
So Matthew 5 verse 14. Okay, just let people find that. Can you find that? And then Brother Stephen, if you want to read that for us. Matthew 5:14.
Ye are the light of the world, a city that is set on a hill cannot be hid.
Right, so that's where we're getting this from, and this is where I think she's drawing that analogy from. So you wouldn't necessarily know why she's comparing it to a city on a hill if you didn't know this verse. So if we bring this verse to it, it says, you're the light of the world, and then it, repeat and enlarge, it says a city set on a hill cannot be hid because it's like a light. And that's what there's this comparison going on there. So here we see that the church is like a light during ages of spiritual darkness. So there's lots of eras of spiritual darkness, and the church during that time period is going to be as a light. So it's going to give people guidance, direction, because it's a light in this darkness. And let's see the next sentence. So Brother Jacob, do you have it in front of you now? Have you got the passage? Yeah. Okay, if you want to do this, the next sentence. So it says, from age to age, through successive generations, the pure doctrines of heaven have been unfolding within its borders. So what's the key thought in this sentence? The pure doctrines of heaven. Anything else? Just that? What about them? Pure doctrines of heaven. I'd add one more word, I think. Unfolding. Okay, unfolding. So what do you want to tell us about this then? What she's saying? What's the essence of this thought? So he's pulled out pure doctrines of heaven unfolding as the key thought, and just give us a bit more detail. What's it telling us?
I think what it's telling us is that it is through that church, which has been set on a hill, where we get the light of God, or His word, the pure word.
Okay, so he's saying, I think what this tells us is that we get the light of the word here, and it comes out of the church. Anything else? So I've got a church, and it's shining here, and any more? It's giving us doctrine. It's giving us doctrine from heaven or truth. Does it tell us anything else? I'm going to get rid of this one. Maybe I'll do it this way. What to do? Put it up here. Is that all you want to say about it? Okay, I see Brother Wilson. Your hand is up. I'm going to do this way so I can get rid of this picture. What do you want to say, Brother Wilson?
You was going back to the first sentence.
Going back to the first sentence.
So, with the keyword is when you see the word us, what the Lord is doing is comparing. Who's going to say the church of God has been as a city, so she's doing a first sentence, she's comparing this spiritual darkness with the church.
Mm-hmm.
So you have darkness and the church of God. Then she's going to compare this with the city of God and the hill. So to me, it's like what, according to me, I'm seeing what my brother Dan was saying. She's comparing the spiritual dark. We have spiritual darkness with the church of God. Then of the church is equal to the city, and the hill is equal to the spiritual what? Darkness. And they have taken us to the book of Matthew, chapter number 5 and verse 14 is going to say, you are the light of the world. So you have the light and of the what? The world. This is going to say a city that's set on a what? On a hill. So it's going to repeat and enlarge that this city, you have the light is equal to the city, and you have the world which is equal to the hill. So according to me, the first sentence is here, chiasm, that spiritual darkness, church of God, you have a city, then you have a hill. According to me, so I don't see if you see like that.
Okay, so Brother Wilson's saying he sees, when he sees the first sentence, it's saying that there are ages of spiritual darkness and there's a church of God as a city on a hill. And then we went to Matthew 5:14, and he's saying that says, you're the light of the world, and a city that's set on a hill cannot be hid. So we see it's a light. And then he's saying there's a chiasm here in this first sentence, that there's darkness, and there's the church, and then there's the city, which is the church, and there's a hill, which is the darkness. And he's saying that that darkness is the world. So this hill is darkness of the world, and the city is in contrast, is the church, and it's a light. So we've got light and church and world and darkness. Good, so we're still on the second sentence. Any more thoughts? Did you finish? Okay, Brother Kuto.
Okay, another thing that I can see is natural and spiritual.
Mm-hmm. So he's saying natural and spiritual.
We can see a city, that is where a king used to set his throne, or where he ruled from. So we can see a city, there's a king inside there, there's a king ruling from that place, and
Okay, I'm going to stop you there,
yes,
because he's putting a king in this city. He's saying there's a king because the city is ruled by a king. There's a king sitting in there. I don't really want to bring anything else into it yet, and because that's not in the passage.
I want to connect with what the previous paragraph, what we...
Okay, so he wants to connect to the previous paragraph, what we already did. All right, I'll let you finish then. Go on.
So the previous paragraph we saw about the throne,
Okay, so the throne.
and we saw that there is a king who seated on the throne, and therefore I take this natural and then compare with spiritual what we saw. That's
So now he wants to compare natural to spiritual,
yes,
and the natural is the city.
yes.
Okay,
And then
where there's a
in this
throne, there's a
city,
real
it has
throne.
a king, and for a king to exist, there should be
A throne.
Yes. Now in this, it says that during ages of spiritual darkness, the church of God has been as a city. So the spiritual is that God is compares this city with what? With the church, and the church we saw that it is connected also with the law, and also it is connected with what? With the throne. So I don't know
So we
if
had that
someone can
here.
assist me to expand.
Okay, so Brother Kuta is making a link between the throne, and he's saying that a city would have a king. Now, we could argue not necessarily, because we know that the king isn't in every city, but he's saying that the city, if it had a king or a throne, it would be in here. And he sees here that the church is linked to the throne, and this is the church, and there's a symbol of a throne in there. It's linked to the truth and the law as well, but he's saying maybe there's some link here between the throne in the city and being part of the church. But I want to hold that thought, so I want to do the second sentence, Brother Oscar.
Okay, so I'm going to look a little bit in the second sentence, but I'm going to line it up with the first sentence.
So Brother Oscar wants to line the second sentence up with the first one. Go on.
It's a repetition, it's repeating itself.
Yep.
So in the second sentence, it's saying that from age to age through successive generations. So if you see from age to age and successive generations, it's the same thing. Just trying to expound much on something, trying to illustrate more. So it's saying that the pure doctrine of heaven have been unfolding within its borders. So from age to age, there's a pure doctrine of heaven which is being unfolded. So if I want to understand this pure doctrine of heaven, I have to go back to the first sentence
which is saying that during the ages of spiritual darkness, so during the ages of spiritual darkness, it's the same as that from age to age. Then it's saying that,
So he's saying age to age is successive generations, and he's saying that in that time truth is unfolded. But let's go back to the first sentence. We see that this age to age is these ages of darkness. So he's paralleling those two things.
so here they're saying that the church of God has been as a city set on a hill. So they're saying that the church of God in the first sentence, and in the second one they're saying that the doctrine, the pure doctrine of heaven. So if they are to say church of God and the doctrine of heaven, so God and heaven, it's like a repetition of the same thing, because heaven is where God stays. So the church of God is like where these doctrines of heaven are. So I can see that the church of God is the one which is having this heavenly doctrine, which is being expounded within its borders as a light which is shining around that place.
Okay, so the church, he's seeing that this pure doctrines of heaven is in the church, and it's enfolding in the church and shining its light from there, and that's the city, the symbol of the city, shining the light. I just wanted to pick up what in that sentence, what's the it's? So there's an it's in that sentence. What's the it's referring to? So it says, from age to age through successive generations, the pure doctrines of heaven have been unfolding within its borders. It's what? The doctrine of heaven. No, it says the doctrine of heaven has been unfolding within its borders. What's the its? Within the city?
The church.
Somebody's saying the church? Within the church. I think the subject of the previous sentence, it says, the church of God has been as a city on a hill. And then it's commenting on the church of God, which is as a city. So it's like a city, but it's the church of God she's commenting on in this next sentence. From age to age through successive generations, the pure doctrines of heaven have been unfolding within the church's borders. Is that fair? So if we say borders, I mean, most cities, they have a wall round them. So this has got a wall round it. And this we could call the borders. So within this borders, the truth of heaven is unfolding through successive generations, or from age to age. Anybody else wants to say anything about that? What does that mean? What's the word unfolding mean? Yes, brother. Sorry, the one behind, he's got his hand up. Put your hand up. I know it's easy to answer.
Same thing what I was about to say.
Okay.
Rather, just highlight.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the principle of repeat and light.
Yeah.
From the first sentence and the second sentence,
Mhm.
we are seeing the repetition, because the ages of the spiritual darkness is referring to age to age or successive generation. And then the pure doctrine of heaven have been unfolding. It was the light. It was on the top of the hill. So this is what I was seeing. Then I was also related to it. The it here is referring to the church or to the city that was on the hill. So in the borders of this city, the light is shining all over, and everybody could see in the darkness.
So he's seeing repeated and enlarged. He's seeing that the borders is the borders of the church, and that the first sentence talks about spiritual darkness or ages of spiritual darkness. The second one talks about ages as well, successive generations. And then you've got the city set on a hill, which is a light, and then this pure doctrines of heaven are the light in the...
So the light is pure doctrine.
Light is pure doctrine. Okay. Anyone else? Brother Dan.
I think this is successive generation,
Mm-hmm.
and each generation has its present truth.
Okay, so now you're putting words in there. Show me from the passage where you get that. So you've got successive generations, which from age to age. So you've got different ages. Okay.
I think the unfolding is this new truth which comes in each generation as
So Brother Dan's saying he thinks the unfolding is new truth that comes in each generation. Now, if we look at the word unfolding, it means opening up. Yeah, opening up. Had something else on that. Yeah, opening up, being made clear. And then one of the definitions of unfolding is if it's talking about events or information, it's a gradual development or revelation, so being revealed. So there's a development or revelation of truth in each. So this is an opening up. So this implies that this church in each generation, if this is the church on the hill, I'll just do one structure, that it doesn't look the same in each time period. So it's not shining in the same way. So I would say unfolding is like a flower. As the flower opens, you get to see more of the detail in the middle. You get the middle, the stem, the colour, everything starts to open up. And this unfolding happens from age to age. So there's an element of progression there, that this is unfolding with each age. It's getting brighter and brighter. So it starts out like that, then it gets more bright, then it gets more bright, until it's absolutely beaming. And this is why we're told in our generation we have more light than any other. So there's this increase in each generation, it seems to me. So there's this progression, and we don't get that necessarily from the first one. It just says ages of darkness, the churches are light. So you think, okay, the church could have the same truth in every generation, just need to believe in Jesus and be saved. But this one is developing the idea, and it's saying from successive generation, there's an unfolding or an opening up, which implies new truth. And as Brother Dan said, he's made reference now to present truth, which brings us back to our original paragraph that we looked at in CTR. So we've got this idea that there's a present truth, and unfolding implies that, to me, that there's an original, and it just keeps on growing like a flower. It opens up, and it's all connected, but there's more light shining. And I saw, what else is introduced in here apart from that? Anything else we want to pick up on? So it's repeat and enlarge. So it's enlarged on the light. So we're seeing now that there's pure doctrines of heaven. So this light is called pure doctrines of heaven. Anything else we want to say about it? There's one more point I wonder if anyone can see from the first part of the sentence. What in the first sentence itself, it says during ages of spiritual darkness. How is that different from the second sentence? What does the second sentence give us? Okay, is age to, so brother, I forgot his name, I'm going to keep going blank. Stephen, sorry. Brother Stephen says from age to age. Is from age to age the same as ages? What do people think? Brother Stephen, do you think it's the same from age to age and ages? Does it give you any difference? Okay, so you're saying that maybe that gives the idea that there's an age here. So ages is just general, so the church could look the same. So you're making the point that from age to age, there's a difference. So it's going from this age to this age, and it's unfolding from that one to that one. So this implies a progression of light. I think you can say that. Anything else in that sentence? What does it add? Sister? Who's had the hand up? Sister Caroline? No, she was pointing at someone else. Brother Rogers? At first I thought it wasn't, but I think Brother Stephen, do you want to expound on that? Defend the point.
So one is saying during these ages of spiritual darkness, these things happen. Then the next sentence is saying, as you move from one age to another. So I guess it's showing that it's not just being in these ages, but transitioning from one age to another. You can see this. I don't know.
I think you're right. I think it's just finish it. So I'm seeing that. Okay. So at first I thought it was the same, but now I'm thinking, okay, during ages of spiritual darkness is very general. There's lots of ages and they're all dark, and in that time God has a city on a hill, a church. That doesn't show anything about the church's development, and this just links to the fact that it says pure doctrines of heaven have been unfolding within its borders. What would we call that? What would we call unfolding within its borders? An unfolding. What would we call that? On a reform line. An increase of knowledge. So what we're seeing is that in every generation, so now it's saying from age to age. So now it's distinguishing the ages. It's not just saying ages general. It's saying from this one to this one, there's an increase of knowledge. So I think that was the point he was trying to make, that maybe there is a difference. It's showing that progression now, whereas before it was a general statement. Go on, Brother Rogers.
I don't think there's a difference.
Okay, Brother Rogers doesn't think there's a difference.
This is my explanation.
Okay.
Unless we are saying there is no repeat and enlarge, because repeat and enlarge means we are given more information
Mhm.
than was said previously.
Mhm.
So if you go to the previous sentence, it says during ages of spiritual darkness. I agree it is general.
Mhm.
And then it tells you what the Church of God does during these ages of spiritual darkness. So this age of spiritual darkness is a long period of time.
Mhm.
We're not told how long it is. And during these ages of spiritual darkness, God's church is likened to a city on a hill. When you come to the second sentence, is now what gives you the details of what the first one means.
So Brother Rogers is saying the first one means, sorry, I know it's just because I won't remember it all, that during ages of spiritual darkness is general. We don't know how long it is. It's a long period of time, and that the church is a city on a hill in that period. It's shining. And now the second sentence is going to tell us more details about that.
So if we say it's not connected, so there are these two rules, progression and repeat and enlarge. So when you use progression, if you're reading like, you understand, if you go to Revelation 17, the second verse is not necessarily connected with the first if you're using progression. It's giving you a continuous story. You move from
Okay.
this point, you go to the next, you go to the next. But when you say repeat and enlarge, what it shows is that the second paragraph is connected to the verse and is giving you more details. So if we say it's repeat and enlarge, then my question will be, what is the repeat and what is the enlargement?
Yes, he's saying progression is different from repeat and enlarge. Progression implies that if you're in Revelation 17, the second verse might not be attached to the first verse. There's a progressive story going on. But here we're saying the technique is repeat and enlarge. I agree with you, yeah, it's repeat and enlarge. So now you have to ask, what's it giving you extra information that it didn't give you before? And go on.
So that's what I'm saying. If you're saying repeat and enlarge, it means you're repeating the previous thing but adding more information. So what we must identify, what is it that is repeated and what is the added information?
So now we must identify what's repeated and what's the added information, which is where I was going to begin with. And Brother Stephen picked up the age to age as opposed to ages. And I was trying to say, is there any difference? And if you just looked at those two phrases, I think Brother Rogers' point is there isn't any difference. Ages or from age to age is the same thing because it's plural ages. And the reason we made it different is because we attached it to the pure doctrines of heaven and saying there's an increase of knowledge here. But if we didn't do that, in that first part of the sentence, what's different? If from age to age means the same as ages, is there any additional information we've got there? I think that's Brother Rogers' point. What's the enlargement? If it's repeat and enlarge, what's the enlargement? You know, Sister Beatrice? What else is in that sentence? What extra information does it give us, apart from ages? If you look at that second sentence. So it says, from age to age, through successive generations, the pure doctrines of heaven have been unfolding within its borders. So what's the repeat and enlarge of the first part of the sentence? Okay, so she's saying that ages shows a progression, it's just a long period of time, whereas from age to age shows different dispensations more clearly. Anything else in that first part of the sentence? Which is kind of what Brother Stephen's saying already. Yeah, in that second sentence, the first part of it, from age to age through successive generations, that part of it, what else do we get from there? Because you've picked up ages, but you haven't picked up anything else. But there's more in there. No, that's the next bit. That's all about the church and the light and the pure doctrines unfolding. But what else do we get on the age to age? You're saying the extra information we get is that now we can see that there's individual ages within that progression. So there's from age to age. What else does it say? Because I'm going to argue with you now that age to age is the same as ages. Age to age, ages, doesn't make any difference to me. What else does it say there? Go on, brother. Yes.
Personally, I just want to maybe explain it more when I put it on the reform line.
So he wants to explain it more by putting it on a reform line. Can you just point out from that first section what's new information there? What's new in that first part of the sentence? Before you do that. No. The first part of the second sentence. So from age to age through successive generations, what's extra, that information there? Sister Beatrice, you know? Do you want to say? Yes, successive generations. There's a new phrase introduced there. So that's what I wanted us to see, because we've got age repeated, and you could say that's an enlargement to say age to age or ages, but most people, if you said ages, they'd know there's more than one. So age to age, what difference does it make? It's age to age, it's ages. And now we're seeing from successive generations. So what does that give you that you didn't have before? Successive generations. What does that mean? Sorry, somebody said something. Who put your hand up? Who wants to answer? Brother Wilson?
One generation following the other.
So one following another. Successive means one after another. Brother Oscar?
It means that these ages which were from age to ages, the ages, I can say it's like a generation. So the age is like a generation. So if it's from age to age, it means that it's from generation to generation. So the ages are sequential. They're successing each other. Like that.
Okay, so they're one after another. You've got from generation to generation. So instead of saying age to age, we can say generation to generation. Anything else? What does generation refer to? Brother Philip, what does generation refer to? Generation refers to age. Okay, so he's saying it to age. If I say ages, what do you think of? What do you think of when I say ages? What's it in relation to? What's the topic? I'm not asking the question very well. If ages is related to time, it's a time period. What's generations related to? You could say time as well. Don't say time though. Say what else is it related to more specifically. This is ages is inanimate. It's just time period. It's not animate. What's generations? People. Okay, that's the answer I wanted. So this is people now. So before you just had ages, something's happening. There's a city on a hill. Now you've got from people to people. So it's pointing out that there's going to be different groups of people in those ages. Okay, Brother Rogers. Oh, sorry, I'm coming back to Brother Pius. Do you want to finish your point? Sorry. You were going to say you wanted to look at it.
Just actually, you have expanded what I was going to say.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Since I was just comparing that during the ages of spiritual darkness, I wanted to put it before 1798.
Okay, so you wanted to say ages of spiritual darkness are before 1798.
Yes, before 1798, this is spiritual darkness, and it's telling us that the Church of God has been a city on the hill. We see during the ages of spiritual darkness, there was also a Church of God which was struggling in that period. And that time tells us that from age to age, through successive generations, we are seeing from that time, from 1798, successively, God has been giving increasing light from generation to generation.
So he's saying from 1798, God has been giving us light increasingly from generation to generation.
Yes.
Go on.
And has been giving, and this light is pure doctrine from heaven. Yes. So we can, from 1798 until where we are, there's too much light which God has been increasing until this time.
And this is light that God's been increasing. These are the pure doctrines of heaven that he's been increasing from 1798. Okay, what's the problem with doing that? What's the problem with saying there's a reform line now? We're going to bring it to a reform line. This is 1798. We've got all this darkness here. And now we're going to put light here, aren't we? Does that model differ from this one? No. What's this one saying? During ages of darkness, the church is as a light. So this is saying what? Sister Deborah shook her head. It's not this. It's different. What are you saying? Are you not? Oh, you weren't. Do you want to comment? No? Anybody seeing there's a difference? There's a problem? No problem? Go on, brother.
So the issue to say is from age to age and the ages, for me I agree with Rogers that I don't see any difference.
Okay, you don't see any difference between age to age and ages, yeah.
Repetitions and the enlargement of the first sentence.
Yeah.
Which is giving more detail on the first sentence.
Okay.
So I don't see any difference from them. Only that the first one was general. But it's going to be broken into detail in the
second sentence, which is the most enlightened form of it.
So he sees that the second sentence is going to give us more detail. And what's the detail it gives us?
The detail is that the light did not, the church of God has never been light all that generally in the ages, but there was an increase of knowledge from age to age, or from generation to generation. This is what he wants to break down as a detail.
So he wants to break down that from age to age or from generation to generation, there's an increase of light.
Increase of knowledge.
Increase of knowledge, which comes from the second part of the sentence, really. But yeah, from generation to generation.
So, but at first it was general.
Yeah.
It was supposed to give the general overview of the subject. But when you come to the second sentence, it is giving the detail, how the church of God has been enlightening the darkness. So it has been a sequential movement, it has been a progressive increase of knowledge from age to age or from generation to generation. So there's no magic.
I think, okay, so from the first paragraph we got that this church has been protected through times of darkness, persecution, powers of evil, opposing, implying it's always been there. And it's been protected by prophecy and God sustained it and looked after it. So there's a continuous thing going on here. Now in this paragraph it's telling us during ages of darkness the church is as a city set on the hill. Why is that different from this? What do we say here happens?
There's darkness.
There's darkness and then there's light.
There's a church of God with light.
Do we normally say darkness is going all the way through here? Now sometimes we do, but the way we teach it is often darkness, contrast, light, increase of knowledge, no more darkness. Now I know in recent years we've been saying there is still darkness there, but God has a light shining. But we would say before that time, where's the light? There's no light in here. But we know there is some light, so we've got to balance those two models. We know that there's always people that God raises up. Is that what you were going to say, Brother Rogers? I'm taking the words out of your mouth. He's got his hand up and he's nodding. Go on, you finish it.
So I wanted to comment on what Brother Pass was saying. He's making an application.
So Brother Pius is making an application, yeah.
It will be okay, but if you consider the quotation, we're taking as when the chapter title is God's purpose for His church.
Okay, so the chapter title is God's purpose for his church.
So one of the problems I realize with this comment is limiting the church to the Seventh-day Adventist church.
Okay, so when he makes application to 1798, he's limiting the church to the Seventh-day Adventist church.
But the way she's using the word church here is generally through all ages.
Okay, so the way she's using church there is general. It's the church through all ages. So whilst you could make some application to that age, that particular time, I think you can do that. It's not limited to that application. So that's just one application because the context of this isn't a specific application. It's a general age to age. He has different.
And then we have this modeling we have just shown there. We have the modeling of a period of darkness first, but there is light. But if you go to the chapters in the book handwriting, first angel, second angel, Advent movement plus another illustration, you see how the depiction she gives is that this darkness goes even into the reform line. As the light shines along the way, it's dispelling this darkness. So the way she's giving here darkness, she's not trying to make a distinction that we have a period of darkness in the reform line.
No.
In these first ages, even those reform lines are included. And she referred even in those reform, she's not saying, even in those histories there is darkness, but the church of God is going to dispel that darkness by illuminating light.
So Brother Rogers' point is that there's the church of God is going to dispel this darkness by giving out light. But if we look at, so she's not making the application we're making here where it's darkness and then it goes to light. She's making an application that there's darkness in the world and that the church is shining as a light through that period. And if you go to, he was referencing early writings and the chapters in early writings that talk about the first and second and third angels' messages, it shows how there were people, that there was still darkness in that time period when the light comes. And we know that in the darkness there are people raised up. So there's people in here like Louis Weir in our time who's preaching about Daniel 11. Or there's the reformers in what we would probably call a period of darkness, but shining out. So we can see that it's not that straightforward, but this depiction is to show us how God raises up a reformer, introduces light, etc. in your generation. So it's going into detail about what happens in these generations in more detail. But the general picture is that there's this darkness over the earth and the light of the church is going to illuminate through that darkness at all times, it seems to imply from the first paragraph. And we know that too in the reform line, because even though we may have light in this reform line, there's always some people in darkness. So like now, the Levites and the Nethinims, we don't know how much light they've got, but there's definitely people in the world in darkness at this point. on a level. So, Brother Dan. Oh, sorry, did you finish? No, Brother Rogers didn't finish.
So now I want to comment on, you were asking what is the repeat and what is the enlargement.
So, what's the repeat and enlargement of this second sentence?
If you go to the first sentence, I want to summarize it. I want to ignore the main words and take the word ages
Hmm.
and then take church. So in the first sentence we have ages and church.
So, he wants to take ages, and then he wants to take church.
Yeah. Because the rest of the words is just detail what's happening in these ages.
Okay, so this is just detail what's happening.
What is this actually being compared to? When you come to the second sentence, this phrase from age to age through successive generation is the same thing.
So, you've got ages again,
From age to age
age to age, but I'm just saying it's the same thing.
and successive generation is the same thing.
Okay, so this is all the same thing. Yep.
And then you have where she says it you identified as the church. In the second sentence.
It is the church, yeah, its borders.
So you can see that age to age, successive generation is the repetition of the ages in the first sentence.
So let's put age to age then. Age to age,
And successive generations repeat the ages of the first.
stroke S generations. And its borders,
And its borders. It is a repetition of the church in the first sentence.
yeah.
Now I think the added detail is that because from the first sentence, which is difficult to conclude, though the church is also supplied through these ages of darkness, but someone could make an argument that maybe they're giving the same light all through the ages. But in the second, she makes it clear that as the church exists from one generation to the next, God's going to give a different piece of light to the church based on the conditions of that particular generation. So the detail is God's going to open up light successfully to meet the condition of the church in different ages.
Okay, so the different in the detail is that anyone could argue that this light stays the same in each age, but from this repetition we see that it's unfolding, that there's a new introduction of light in each age, in essence, which I think is kind of summarising what we've said. And we're going to call that new truth, present truth, for that generation. And that's the application we make. So let's go to the, unless anyone's had any questions. The next sentence, enfeebled and defective as it may appear, the church is the one object upon which God bestows in a special sense his supreme regard. So, Sister Caroline, do you want to do that one? What's that saying now?
It speaks about the church. And it speaks about, I think, the people in that church. And
Talks about the people in the church.
yeah, because they're the ones who are enfeebled and defective.
So she's going to say now that the enfeebled and defective are the people. So let's put that down. Equals people. Sorry, this pen's not very good. And anything else?
But says God bestows his, this church is the one object upon which God bestows special sense his supreme regard. That God regards this church as far as there may be enfeebled and defective people there, that God has supreme regard. He esteems still these defective and enfeebled people in his church.
What does it mean to bestow supreme regard? We don't really use that kind of phraseology, do we? So he's saying, defective and enfeebled though these people are in this church, God, what are we saying about God?
Is it a special kind of grace or the supreme regard? He has esteem or he values. I think that is what.
Okay, so he esteems them, he values them. If you bestow supreme regard on something, what would we say? Cherish, love.
Yeah,
So he loves it still.
yeah.
Somebody else had a hand up. Brother Oscar.
Okay, I have some
But
Okay.
in the sentence, it's just giving us meaning that it's the church. So if we are to restrict it to be the people in the church, maybe God requires something of the church, not of the people in the church. But we mix it together and we make it known that if it's a church, it must be having people. And that's how it is. But here it's given that the church, there's something that God requires of the church. But if it's personal, then we can disintegrate the passage and then make it personal. That this special supreme regard is for each and every person in the church. But this supreme regard I'm seeing as if it is for the whole church. Just something that the church is going to give all together to God. Something that God has given to the church, I mean. So if we are to make it the defective and enfeebled to be the people in the church, it does not match with saying that it is the church at all. Because it's the church that is enfeebled, according to me.
So Brother Oscar doesn't want to make the enfeebled defective the people, because he's saying this is talking about the church at large, not the people. And then what?
So if we are to say that, so if we are to make it people,
Mhm.
then it means that not all of them are going to be what?
If we make it people,
It's not all.
it's
all
not
of them
all
are
of
going
them.
to be defective and enfeebled. Others are going to be strong.
Not
So
all of them are enfeebled.
But here God is trying to say that the church, the condition is that it's not that strong, it's weak, enfeebled and defective. So it's not that good. But though it is not that good, there's some requirement out of it. So I'm seeing it as a church. But if they're married to people, then you have to know that in the church, not everyone is going to be defective and what.
Okay, so he's saying its condition isn't that good, it's weak in some way, the church, and that means that, but still God has something to do with it. He wants to do something with it. He's got regard for it. Okay, so my question to you would be then, the sentence before it says that this is the pure doctrines of heaven are unfolding within its borders. What makes it enfeebled and defective? Why is it enfeebled and defective then? When it's told us up to now, in the first one it's told us that God is caring for it, protecting it, he's looking after it, he's dealing with it, it's a city set on a hill, it's the light of the world, it's pure doctrines of heaven. And now we see enfeebled and defective. What's enfeebled and defective about it? What's that?
I'm thinking about it.
You're thinking about it because you have to understand maybe what enfeebled and effective is. Maybe we need to look at that. I think he was right to say enfeebled is weak. I think that's what enfeebled does mean, weak, and effective. So, Sister Dorothy, did you have that? No. Brother Wilson?
According to me, I can say enfeebled and being effective is connected with this truth being unfolded progressively. That means this child does not understand the light at once, so the darkness being expelled progressively. So that it means enfeebled and being effective means light being unfolded progressively. The child does not understand the message at once, God can see it progressively. There's still darkness, but God is expelling this darkness progressively.
So Brother Wilson is saying that he sees enfeebled and defective to mean that they haven't got all the light, that this light is revealed progressively, and so they've got a measure of it, and they're a bit weak and feeble because of it, but it's going to keep on unfolding. They're going from strength to strength in a way. So that's what makes them feeble, is that they don't have all the light at once. I'm seeing the same hands, I want different hands. Okay, Sister Linda.
I'm saying that being enfeebled and defective, like, it's a single light surrounded by darkness. So it's somehow impossible to, it seems, according to human eyes, hard for it, or weak for it to spread the light around. So in that term, it will look weak because it's surrounded by total darkness.
So Sister Linda's saying she sees this church as a single light. So this is a single city on a hill that's shedding this light. It's surrounded by darkness. So its job is difficult because of its size, because there's only one of it. And that's why it's enfeebled and defective. Brother Oscar, I'll come back to you then.
Okay, so I just want to link it to be the church still. So when you are
So he wants to make it the church still.
I want to link it with the second sentence. So the second sentence, we had found out that its borders is the border of the word of the church. But if we are to go the other side, it's going to say enfeebled and defective as it may appear. So that it, I am still saying that is the church. So if I'm to prove text, the it is still the church. And then the other part is also the church. So it means that they're talking about the church. But not to bring the concept of a person into that church. So it is
tries to make it so narrow. We have narrowed the scale that the scripture is trying to do. That's according to me.
Okay, so he still wants to make it the church because the first part of the sentence says, enfeebled and defective as it may appear, the church. So it's clear it's speaking about the church, and you wanted to parallel it to the first part of the previous sentence. No,
It's okay.
that's okay. That's what you wanted to say. So he wants to make it the church. He doesn't want to make it the people in the church. Brother Dickens,
Yeah,
come back to
I would see a different perspective that as Brother Oscar is seeing. First, if I remember what Oscar alluded yesterday, he said the parable is scalable, can have different scale, but it would make sense the way my sister here was seeing this enfeebled and defective as the people, not the church, because when you go to the last paragraph of this,
the last sentence.
the last sentence,
Okay.
it's saying it is the theater of his grace.
Okay, so Brother Dickens is cheating. Sorry, wait there. Brother Dickens is going to the next sentence to get the answer. Now that's good, it's good, but we don't want to go there quite yet. So I'm just trying to do it from what we've already done. So he's saying he disagrees with Brother Oscar, that he doesn't want to say that enfeebled and defective is the church. He's going to say something different, but he wants to go to the sentence ahead to do it. So hold that thought, Brother Dickens. I don't want you to go to the next sentence. I want you to see if there's any clues in the previous sentences that what we can see as the enfeebled and defective. So I'm seeing lots of hands, and I know nearly all of them have already spoken, so maybe I should go in order how they were, which was that brother and Brother Kuto. So go on.
Thank you. I want to have a different thought apart from all of them.
So he wants to introduce a different thought apart from everybody.
Yeah.
Come on.
I think this one here, I don't really see whether the Chinese people are weak, but it seems like it appears to be like that. And actually, it is not like that. Only that when the light is shining, the devil will counterfeit and he will double the portion of the darkness, and then the church will be in difficulty. So the church will appear to be enfeebled and defective. So when it is in the darkness and it is showing the light, it is not all that perfect. The work is difficult. But the church there is not weak, is not people. So it is neither the people nor the church which is weak, but it is seen to appear feeble and defective because it is in the field of the darkness. Although it is like that, it is the only very church which God has bestowed his special sense and his regard upon it. So the church is okay, there's no problem with it, but it appears to be like that.
Okay, so the brother's picking out, what word is he picking out in this sentence? Appear. Now I didn't ask you what's the most important word in this sentence so far, and I think we've honed in on feeble and defective and perhaps supreme regard. But this brother now wants to focus on appear, so he's disagreeing it's the people or the church, because he says, the sentence says, enfeebled and defective as it may appear. So he's saying it's not defective, it's not enfeebled, it just looks that way because the devil is going to try and multiply darkness around it. He's going to throw all these things we've seen at the beginning, maybe conflict, darkness, persecution against it. But even though it may look like it's enfeebled and defective, because of that, God still has supreme regard for it. And that, I guess, links with he watches over it, he sustains it, he cares for it, he's got love for it. So, Brother Dickens, do you want to pick up your... I'm coming to Brother Kuto.
I first want to ask something and then I give my thought. We are to pick up from within on this paragraph, or we can go to paragraph before.
Okay, I'll let you do that.
Okay.
He says, can we use the paragraph before as well, or do we just have to stay in this paragraph? It might be good to stay in this paragraph. I think we should probably stay in this paragraph because it's the context of this paragraph, and the first sentence gives us kind of like the overview. So, Brother Kuto, what did you want to say?
So, as for me, I can see cause and effect.
Okay.
So, cause and effect here, the church is weak and enfeebled the way from the first lines that we have seen. So, that is the condition of the church.
So, Brother Kuto is saying it's weak and defective from the first lines. Where do you get it from the first lines?
So, enfeebled, here we are sticking we are within the context of what we are discussing.
Okay, so you're saying it says enfeebled and defective.
So that is the condition of the church.
That's the condition of the church.
And therefore, there is a cause and the cause and effect that we see when God unseals this light or unfolds this light, then the church does what? Enfeebled and defective as it may appear, the church is the object upon which God bestows his special sense, his supreme regard. God will use, though it is that, but by unfolding the light, the church becomes becomes what? Strong.
So you're using the same point in a way that's already been stated about that he says that it's enfeebled and defective as it seems. When God unfolds light, then it will appear strong. So as he gives more light from age to age, it gets stronger and stronger, which is similar to Brother Oscar. Sister Beatrice had a hand up.
Yeah, I'm saying that the enfeebled and defective goes to the church and to the people. Because what I'm saying, we have successive generations. And in these successive generations, it means that God is revealing or unfolding the pure doctrines. But those pure doctrines are encircled by the what? By the darkness. Meaning, people at this, I don't know, at the city or in the city there, may sometimes maybe copy and paste the darkness into the what? Into the church. Therefore, God is saying, however much they are enfeebled and defective, it may appear. He has even though it is defective, he protects it more and more. But the people there are
So you're picking up the word generations. You're saying from successive generations, he has people who he's unfolding the light to, the pure doctrines of heaven, or through, to or through or both, and that some of them may still gather darkness, and that makes it defective.
that's
They
why
s-
we have the successive generations. Because we will not be having other generations coming in. The church was pure all along.
So you're saying because it's not pure all along, that he has to get different generations. Is that what the previous sentences have taught, though? Have they taught it's not pure enough, so they have to have more? Is it? That's kind of negative, isn't it? Because do the first two sentences give the idea of negativity about the church at all, or positive? Positivity. It's positive, isn't it? I think this is the first indication of negativity. So we want to ask, why is that? And I think you're picking up generations, which I think is interesting because we've already said generations of people as opposed to just a time period. So maybe work on that thought. Go, Brother Dan.
Yeah, what we did in the controversy, whereby you have two sides. You have the light and you have darkness.
So he's saying we have a great controversy, we have light and we have darkness, there's two sides.
Darkness also it wants to cover up the light.
Okay, it wants to cover up the light.
And
Maybe he's
also
going
the
to paragraph
light
1.
wants to cover up darkness.
And the light wants to
That's
dispel
why,
darkness.
For me, when I look at a point where it is feeble, as it may not appear, because this is God's kingdom, anyway. There's no way God can leave his kingdom and goes and takes care of the devil's kingdom. It is impossible. So to him, even if it looks like that, he's going to use it because this is his territory. But because it's increasing light, the more you increase light in darkness, the more the overcoming what? Darkness. And the end result of it all, you will no longer have darkness. That will be at the end of the controversy. So I think the point in time where people may see or may feel, it's that point in time where when they look around themselves and they are seeing as if this darkness is overtaking the church. But what the writer is telling us that even though it may seem so, it won't be. Because God is going to increase light in this, and this darkness will be overthrown.
Okay, so summarizing, Brother Dan's saying that from age to age, if more light is shining, that means more darkness is expelled. So the purpose of the church is this increasing light. So at first it looks like a small light in a big dark world, and there's two sides, and it may look like the darkness is overshadowing that light or covering it. When you look at it, it may look very small and very feeble, but as it goes from generation to generation. So I think you're probably saying very similar to what he's saying, from strength to strength. The more light shines, the more darkness gets dispelled until the end, when the earth is full of light or glory, or however we like to picture that. And so that's why it seems to appear, because it's a small light, I guess, that it seems defective and enfeebled. Anybody else got a different thought on it? Brother Rogers? So Brother Rogers is saying the word appear there. Are you saying that's what it means, or you're asking?
What, that's the meaning he was giving.
Is it that Brother Rogers is challenging the meaning that was given of the word appear to imply that that word meant, the brother said, that it seems, it's not really, it appears, it pretends it to be something. Go on.
But I'm saying I don't think the word appear is being used that way in this context.
Okay, so he's arguing that it's not used that way in this context.
So then the question is, we should discuss how she's using the word appear here. Is it in the idea of pretend condition, or is she identifying the real condition of the church?
So is she using it here in terms of its pretend condition, or is it the real condition of the church? So when I think the difference between the two words, the two ways of understanding appear, was it could appear to be something that it isn't. So it gives you an impression of a certain way, or it literally looks this way. So can everybody see the difference between the two? So I may say that appears, the sky appears red today, and it literally does look red. Or I may say it appears that a storm is coming. It seems like one because of the atmosphere or something. So I can't really see. I know that's not a very good example, but does everyone understand the difference between the two?
Yes.
And the brother wants to comment. Do you want to comment on
I
that?
want to just back up.
Yes.
I'm not finished.
Okay. So ask the question then.
The problem I had with what Oscar was saying.
Okay.
I
So,
don't know how we came to these sentences and began to make a distinction between the church and the people.
okay. So this sentence, he's got a problem as well that we make a distinction between the church and the people.
How do we make that
How do we make that distinction between church and people?
Because I'm saying, if you want to really play it the way she's writing, she's saying this is the problem with the church. I don't know how we begin to say, now what we are presenting is this idea of structure and people.
So I think he's agreeing with you in one sense. You're saying, or we're making a distinction between structure and people now when the sentence says church. And I think that was his point. He wants to make it say church and not individual people. So he's saying the church as a whole is enfeebled and defective. So I think you're agreeing with that. Are you?
So, if you look at the word appear the way you've said, I think if you go to 1828 dictionary, which is the dictionary Ellen White's again,
Mm-hmm.
the word appear can also mean something real. Like I say,
It looks, yeah.
Sister Emma appears to me tall. That is the real condition.
Yeah.
And appear can also mean in the sense of pretend.
So it just means, he's saying in an 1828 dictionary, appear can mean real, it's real. It doesn't mean it's imaginary or it seems to be that way, it means it is. So when we say the appearance, it means the look. So it looks like this, and it really does look like this. So that tarpaulin looks orange, it is orange.
I think now, finally, how we determine the meaning of the word appear is if we continue reading the sentence, the way Brother Deacon said, you can see clearly that there is a problem with it. That's why she says the church is the theatre of God's grace to change hearts.
Okay, so you're going ahead as well. Stop that.
So if you go in,
He's going to the next sentence. I was trying to do it without going to the next sentence because I think that's probably, maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we're going to the next sentence because this sentence of itself doesn't seem to repeat and enlarge of the first two. So the first two are repeat and enlarge. So we're reading correctly to say, actually, I can't really understand what this is talking about until I go to the next sentence. So do we want to go to the next sentence then?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll give permission to go to the next sentence. Did you finish your thought, Brother Rogers? And actually, let somebody else do it.
so then what I'm saying, honestly, I don't know how I can prove what I came with from that point.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that these are repeat and enlarge of the previous sentences.
Right, so he doesn't know how to prove what appear means there because it's not necessarily repeat and enlarge of the last two sentences, the first two sentences.
Further details
Could be giving further details.
that we have not seen in
Yeah.
any of the places coming down.
Yeah.
And as we continue down now, she will continue. So I think what really will determine at the end of the day who's defining the word appear correctly is when we continue reading the paragraph.
Okay, so he's saying we can only really define appear correctly from reading the rest of the paragraph. Let's just go back and see what we have seen. In the first sentence, are we seeing something real?
But I first want to answer his question. He was asking me one question, and to see the context I was using it. In fact, Brother Rogers is right to ask the question that way. And honestly, I define appears in form of pretending, as he said, because I came to the understanding by the way.
Oh, sorry, you defined appear as pretending?
Yeah.
Pretending, okay.
Yeah. So in fact, giving a thought doesn't mean that yours is the correct, but you have maybe his idea
Yes,
about how you see it.
that's fine.
It may be correct, may not be correct.
Yeah.
But what I was seeing is because of the word may. So I took this word may appear, it means that it's not definite.
Okay, so may,
It doesn't really appear, but it may appear or may not appear like that. But I was taking it to be in form of pretending because of connected to the word may appear. So I was not taking like God did not pick it to be like it really appears like that, but it sometimes it may appear. So I use it in a pretending way that it is not in people, it is not defective, but it is seen to be like that.
So the brother's defending his point, saying that the word appear here is, he used it in terms of pretending because it said may appear. So it's not definite. So the question now is, who is it going to appear to? May appear to who in that way? And then I suppose backtracking, I'm saying, what does the previous paragraph, can we get anything from the two, before we move to the last sentence, can we get anything from the first two sentences to help us interpret this sentence? Or even, I know Brother Dickens wanted to go back to the first paragraph. So because we're getting a bit stuck, if anyone hasn't got any ideas on the first two sentences, maybe we'll allow him to go back to the first paragraph. Did you have something you wanted to comment on, Brother Dickens, on the first paragraph then? Because that sets the tone for the subject of the rest of it, I suppose, although it's not the first paragraph of the actual passage. Go on.
Yeah, I see the better option is to do it the other way, to go to the next. But I would try to go to the...
Yeah, the better option he wants to do is go to the next sentence, which is the easy way out.
Yeah, but I want to use this way around, and then maybe I leave that one for other.
Okay.
So when we to go to the previous paragraph, what I would use to as another witness to show that this have more connection to individuals would be when you go to the middle of the sentence there, the one which begins he has not left. He's saying he has not left his church forsaken, but has traced in prophetic declarations. So when you see declaration is just like utterance. So when some thing is being uttered, automatically it's being uttered to a group of people. But further it can be witnessed.
Okay, so what Brother Dickens is picking up the sentence, sorry, just because I'm going to forget everything he's saying. He's picking up the sentence halfway through the previous paragraph, which says, he has not left his church forsaken, but has traced in prophetic declaration. And he's saying a declaration is an utterance, and that an utterance can only be given through people.
Yeah. Declarations, what would occur, and that which is inspired, is spirit-inspired prophets, and who are prophets? Human beings.
So he's saying the prophets are human beings that he's inspired to write things down.
Yeah, so it's like God does not come by himself, but he uses his servant, the prophet, to speak to the beings like them. Then he continues and says, to foretell, prophets to foretell has been brought about, or what has been brought about, so to speak about the future. So I would also use that one rather than even going to the next one.
So you're going to use that one now. You're saying prophets have foretold it, people have given these prophetic declarations, and what's you going to do with that?
Sorry?
How are you going to link that to the one we're dealing with?
Link this one to the infallibleness in this sentence, that if maybe the prophet speaks, the people does not obey, it brings infallibleness to those who are supposed to obey.
So you're saying when the prophet speaks, maybe the people that are there don't listen, and that brings in feebleness to it. So you're seeing people there, it's referring to people, and maybe you can link that idea of people to this next paragraph.
Because I would be with as one story.
But in that sentence, there's nothing negative, is there, about enfeebled and defective, so we can't see that there's a problem with their prophetic declarations because they're inspired by the Spirit. So the stress on that sentence, I would say, is that it's positive. This is from God these people have messages from. There's nothing about it being imperfect in that sense.
Well, I agree.
Okay.
But the point was to see maybe people.
Maybe to see people. So that's a good point. He's seeing people in there. Are we seeing, and I know Sister Beatrice already pointed out that we see people in generations. So we can see people being referred to there in that second sentence, I think, because the repeat and enlarge tells us more than ages, it's to generations, it's to people. He's giving a message that something's happening. Brother Jeremiah at the back.
Well, I had this that from the previous paragraph which we read, through the centuries of persecution and conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So we have conflict and persecution which makes the church and the people weak.
Mm-hmm.
And shows that God has sustained his church. So something that which is sustained is something which needs, it has a problem, it needs some support.
Okay, so he's saying that he goes back to the first sentence, through centuries of persecution, conflict and darkness, God has sustained, and the fact that these bad things have been happening to it, it needs sustaining, it needs support in some way. So it's got some level of weakness.
Feeble. It's weak.
Okay.
That's where my point comes from.
So that's what he's trying to show, that this is it's the church, and it can be weak because it needs this support and care constantly from God.
Yeah.
Okay. Brother Philip.
So backing up, the point that he said is the point that I wanted to say. Like when you see in feeble, when you talk about in feeble, it is an external factor that weakens, is like weaken. So you are not just...
So enfeebled is a term for weakness, weakened.
Right, yes, weakness. So you are made to be weak by an external factor. You're not weak by yourself.
You're made to be weak by external factors.
Yeah. So when you say enfeeble and defective, so that means it is this weakness that you have that is going to cause you some defect. That is going to bring you upon defect.
So what
I'm seeing is there is a cause. Okay, you are weakened, and this weakness is going to give you defect.
So he's saying there's a cause, it's weakness, and that weakness is going to make you defective.
Yeah. In fact, this is going to the weakness that you have or that has been bring upon you by and some external factor is going to cause you defect. So, but God is still going to what? Is going to care or is going to tend. Like for example,
So God is still going to care and attend to it,
care for you,
even though it's weak and defective.
provide you with some light that will give you encouragement. So we see two external factors here. We see someone weakening the church, and we see God now coming as an external factor also to hold the church up.
So we see two factors. We see the church is weakened and defective because of the attacks from the enemy, the outside, from paragraph 1.
Yeah.
And God is going to sustain and hold it and strengthen it.
So we see the contrast.
So we see that contrast.
Yeah.
Okay. Any different thoughts? Anybody want to add anything? Yes, brother.
Yeah, I can see the point of the two brethren.
Which two brethren? He sees the point of the two brethren.
Even without going to the previous paragraph, you can see it within the paragraph.
Okay, so he wants to see it within the paragraph.
The first sentence says, during ages of its spiritual darkness, the church of God has been as a city set a hill. We should ask ourselves, what is the darkness doing? And the answer would be, this darkness is assailing the church. It's maybe threatening to put off that the light that is coming with the church. And as it does so, the church becomes weakened by that attack, and it becomes effective. So I'm saying it's the whole church, it's the church as maybe a structure here, not individual like some people have said.
So he's agreeing that this darkness is coming upon, what's this darkness doing that's coming upon the church? And he's agreeing with people that this enfeebled and defective is the church itself, because the darkness is trying to encroach on the light of the church, and God is stepping in to care, protect it, and therefore it's the church here, because it's this darkness is trying to cover over the light of the church. Anything else? That's all. Okay. Brother Stephen, yeah.
So, I think this sentence in itself, I think, explains that even if the church appears as if it is even if the church looks defective, God is going to use the church anyway. It is the only thing He can use, and it's the only object on which He can bestow His supreme love. And so you have, because in the previous sentences, what you've had is like you have these ages of spiritual darkness, and then you've had God constantly shedding light on this church that is set on a hill. So I think when you come to this verse, the point is not whether the church is weak, but that it is the object that He's going to use to do whatever He wants to do in the world.
So Brother Stephen's point is, it doesn't really matter whether it appears or it really is defective. That's not the point of the sentence. The point of it is that God has still got His regard on it. He loves it still, and He's going to use it for purpose. It's still fit for purpose in that sense, even though it's really weak and defective or it isn't weak and defective. From the first two sentences, can we see, is there any indication that it really is weak and defective? No, I don't think there is. So it seems to me, if we didn't go on to the next sentence, so Sister Lance, you want to respond?
No, just I set on a hill. I think that he's comparing the city and a hill, and during darkness, spiritual ages, I think that he's speaking about the conditions. And when you go to this,
So, sorry, are you saying anything different? So you're saying the first part says, ages of spiritual darkness, is comparing that to the city set on a hill, the church?
comparing the city with a hill.
So he's comparing the city with a hill. So she's saying during ages of spiritual darkness, the church of God has been as a city set on a hill. He's comparing the city to the hill.
Yeah, but he's saying something like that. He's speaking about that a spiritual darkness period that the church is in this period, and he take out the church and put up on the mountain, on the hill.
Okay, so he's taking an area of spiritual darkness and he's now taking this church and he's putting it up on a hill.
In every sentence, or
And the next sentence?
in every sentence, when say from 8 to 8, he is saying again the same situation. He's repeating the same situation. He's take out his church from darkness period again, and he's extending. He's saying he's explaining how he's going to do it. The pure is through the pure doctrines of heaven that they are unfolding into the borders of this church, because they fit in this church and like growing inside internal way.
So he's saying inside the borders of this church, he's comparing that to the successive generations of darkness, that they've got this unfolding within the borders of the church, that's a safe place. It's a bit like when we have a greenhouse at home. We're growing plants in it. It's a safe environment for that plants to grow.
And when he say when it's enfeebled and effective, it's the same condition that the rest of the world believe that the church is least. They believe that the church is weak, is enfeebled and effective. But he's extending us this information that he say that the church is the one object upon God bestowed in a special sense his supreme regard. He's explaining that even if you saw it in this way, in this condition, that if you saw the church like a weak or like a defective, it's all my grace is upon all, is all my special senses upon the church.
So he's saying even if you see it this way as weak and defective, all my grace and all my attention is on that church.
Yeah.
So
He's trying to show us how is he's carrying the church until putting the church in a right position.
that he's put the church in an elevated position. Yeah. Okay.
Like that.
Yeah, he's lifted it up above that darkness.
Yeah. He's in each sentence he's show us how he's going to arrive to the church in this process to increase of knowledge. I thought.
So he's going to arrive at that process through an increase of knowledge. So I think in summary, everyone's probably agreeing that this means, whether it looks like it or it really is, the whole way it's worded may appear, seems like someone's looking at it. Who's looking at it? Who does it appear defective to? Brother Kutu, the world. Is it just the world? Because when we discussed the first paragraph, we said, what's he trying to do here with us? He's showing us that the church is going to go through all these things, and then he says, but rest assured, my hand is over it. I know in advance what's going to happen. I've given you prophecy, because who's he given prophetic delineations to? So we know he's talking to the church now when it says prophetic declarations, because that's the people that he's given these prophetic declarations to. So he's talking, if we're the church, he's talking to us. And so who does it appear defective to? Us. I think it's referring to us, not the world, because the world doesn't really care, doesn't even know it exists probably, let alone it might see this city, but on one level. But he's addressing us, I think, because the first whole paragraph is talking about giving us assurance and confidence and trust that God's in charge of this work. And now he goes on to say, look, it's like a city set on the hill, and it's got unfolding pure doctrine in its borders. And if you don't believe me, because it may look pure and it may look feeble and defective to you, I'm still taking care of it. I love it. It's my supreme regard. It's the most important thing to him in the universe. At this point is the church, which is huge elevation. He's put us right up there. So he's saying, don't look at what it looks like physically. Don't look at your circumstances, your surroundings. And he's been saying that in the first thing. Don't look at the conflict, the persecution, the darkness. Look at me who's taking care of it. And I think that's what the essence of this is. He's saying again, he's repeating the same thing really. He's saying, this is what it is. May not look like that to you, but that's what it is. And now I'm here for you and I'm going to take care of it. And it's going to be triumphant. So it's picking up those kind of thoughts. And then the last sentence, it's going to say, it is the theatre of his grace in which he delights to reveal his power to transform hearts. So Sister Blessing, do you want to do that one? What is that saying? It is the theatre of his grace in which he delights to reveal his power to transform hearts. So I'm going to put on the board some of the stuff we've already done. So let me just put, I'm going to put on this side, church equals a city set on a hill. And then that side I'm going to say, the pure doctrines of heaven have been unfolding within it. In its borders. I just might help you with this next sentence. So this one, what's this saying now? So it starts, it is. What is? What's the it? Sister Blessing, don't help her. What is the it? So it is the church. Good, yeah. It, the church is what?
According to the sentence here,
Mm-hmm.
is a theatre of his grace.
So it's a theatre of his grace. What does that mean? What happens in a theatre? What's that? You don't know because you're a good conservative Adventist. What happens in a theatre? So this is saying it is the theatre. So I'm saying, because we're saying this is the church, I'm going to put it under here. It, which is the church, equals theatre of his grace. Okay, is grace easier? What's grace? What's grace? The theatre of his grace. It might help if you link it to the rest of the sentence, in which he delights to reveal his power to transform hearts. So what's grace? Don't know? I think there's a word in the next part of the sentence I want you to use for grace. Power. Okay, so let's say that grace is the power. So this theatre is it is a theatre of his power. What happens in a theatre? Do you know? No? Well, people go to watch a play, don't they, in a theatre. So there's people acting out a story, let's just say a story, and it's on display, and they sit and watch it. So he's telling us what? The church is what?
I think the church. I think the church is there for the whole world to see.
Okay, so the church is there for the whole world to see. So it's like a demonstration. It's the whole world can see it, like they're the audience at a theatre. So they're watching the church, and what are they looking at?
The power of God
They're looking at the power of God to do what?
to transform hearts.
To transform hearts. What does that mean? What does transform mean?
I think change.
To change hearts. And what does that look like? What does it mean to change hearts?
I think it's like changing hearts of people.
Okay, so it's changing hearts of people. So now we're talking about people because we're talking about this power I don't know where to put this, let's put it up there. There's a power to change hearts, and hearts equals people, because people have hearts or minds. You can't change an inanimate object. So if we say the church is a structure, or we could say it's a group of people, but it's because it's hearts plural, but it's still people. You see that? So it's the power of God to change people. And so this theatre of his grace, in which he delights to reveal his power to transform hearts. So there's a work going on in this church, and people are looking at it. And what are they seeing? What does it mean to change hearts? So the hearts are in the people.
I think from darkness to the church, into the church.
So from the darkness into the church, there's a change. So or the change takes place in the church, because it's the theatre of his power. Outside of the church? So say, tell me what you think this sentence it means then. What does it want us to get from it?
The church is the theatre.
The church
For
is
the whole world to see.
Mhm.
And by seeing, it changes their hearts from darkness into the church.
Okay, so I think you're seeing it slightly differently now. Okay, so she's saying, I think this theatre is the church, and it's on the hill for everyone to see, and they're looking at it, and when they look at it, it's going to change their hearts. So it says, it is the theatre of grace in which, what does in which mean? So if you're saying the theatre, this is the theatre, because the church is the theatre. So I'm just going to draw it, and maybe I'll draw it up here. So you've got this theatre, curtains, and then she says, so this is the theatre of his grace, and she says, in which, so where are we? Are we in the theatre or are we out the theatre? Shh, don't help her. In which? So we're in the theatre, so now we're in the theatre, and then what does it say? So it says, in the theatre, it is the theatre of his grace, in which he delights to reveal his power to transform hearts. So where is this revelation taking place? In here. So he delights to reveal his power to change hearts. So this change of heart is happening in or out? Where's the change of heart happening? In the theatre or out the theatre?
I think he uses the theatre to change the hearts of people from outside.
So you're saying he thinks he uses this theatre to change the hearts of the people on the outside, but is that how it reads? Because it says, it is the theatre of his grace in which he delights to reveal his power to transform hearts. So where is he revealing this power to change the heart? Where is the heart being changed? Is it in here or is it out here? Because it's saying in which he delights to reveal or show. If we say show, that's what goes on in a theatre, isn't it? They have a show at the theatre. So they're showing you something. So in here, he's showing something. He's showing his grace to change hearts in the theatre. So where's the heart change happening? Are we seeing the power to change the heart in the theatre or out the theatre?
It's as if inside the theatre, but again I'm confused.
So she's saying it's as if it's inside the theatre, but again she's confused. Now why are you confused?
Because there's already the church of God.
There's already the church of God. Where's that?
So it means that people change their hearts, they must enter into first, then change.
Yeah. So now she's thinking it's confusing because now they must come into the church to get the change. Now, what's the only power on earth that can change a heart? The power of God. So you would agree the only thing that can change a heart is the power of God. Where is the power of God found? In the church or in the world? In the church. So that's the picture it's trying to say. It's trying to show us that this is in contrast with the darkness. It's a theatre where people can be changed. And that's the only place where they can be changed. And the only way that you can have change is if you come in contact with that church. So in that sense, you're part of it. But you're going down the route of, I'm in the world and I have some contact and I get changed and then I step into a building. So I think you're seeing the church as a building and you're saying you need to have a change before you get in that building. And so I think we mustn't limit it to a building. It's the church itself. And the only way you can have a change is if you have contact with that church and with that power of God. So it's saying that in that church is a manifestation. So now they see Sister Blazing attached to that church and they say, she's changed. What's happened to her? So it's a show for the world. It is a show for the world. It's a theatre giving them a demonstration of what God can do in people's lives. So now it's made it on an individual level. It's made it down to the people, and it's showing that this is the power of God to change someone's life that's demonstrated through the church. And that's what the demonstration is. And when we think back to what we did yesterday, we said they're going to stand before the world chosen and faithful. So in that condition as chosen and faithful, they give a testimony to the world about what God can do in someone's life. And that's where this is kind of ending up as well. It's showing this is what's going to happen to you if you attach yourself to this group of people. Brother Stephen. Okay, we're out of time, so this last comment.
So I agree. So if you connect this paragraph to this line, to the previous line, you saw that you had prophets at the previous paragraph, and God was revealing his truth to this prophet about what is going to happen.
Okay, so he's saying in the previous paragraph we have prophets who God revealed the truth to about what was going to happen. So they had a message from God.
And so in here you're seeing that there's the grace, a theater. It says it is the theater of his grace, the church. And so you have also where he is delighting in transforming people's lives. So I'm thinking of it as the work of that, though the prophecy that was being given by the prophet, the light that was shining out of his church to a dark world, to be this work here that is that to be the one that is transforming this life, so that the prophecies or the gospel is the one that transforms life, and it is revealed by the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit revealed the prophecies and it's shown to the world. And so here you also have the, God revealing this power in transforming.
So he's linking the people from the previous paragraph who are the prophets, who the Holy Spirit revealed the prophecies to, and he's showing how the Spirit worked in their lives to reveal this truth. And he's linking that to the fact that in this paragraph we have hearts that are changing or being revealed through the power of God by connection with this church. So we're seeing there's people in both paragraphs. Brother Rogers, did you want to close up? No? Okay, so I think, and then we were going to attach that sentence to the previous one, and I think we can show from that it might look enfeebled and defective. I don't know whether we want to say because there's people in there who haven't got changed hearts, whether that's reading too much into it or whether it's to do with the light. So maybe think about that. I don't know if we've quite finished this paragraph, but we have to stop. So we'll come back tomorrow. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the power that you have chosen to bestow upon your church, that you delight to change us, that power is available for each one of us to have changed hearts. And we're so thankful and grateful that we can partake of your divine nature through the power of the Holy Spirit, because you have promised that to us in these passages. We thank you for your supreme regard that you bestow upon each one of us as individual members of your church. We thank you for the love, the care, the watch care that you have over us, that we are the apple of your eye, even though we may appear weak and defective. We thank you that you are going to triumph in this earth, and that you, by your grace, you will use us to do that. We pray that you would keep us faithful and that we would endure unto the end, that you'll bless us for the rest of the day now, for we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.